Good morning. Can everyone hear me? Loud and clear? Okay. Good morning. I'm Laura Bracken, and welcome to our third day of Disability in a Week. We've enjoyed all of our previous speakers, and I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy our speaker that we have this morning. But before we get started, we'll of course do some housekeeping. Just some information I want to share with you. Our agenda for the week has been Monday. We had some folks come and speak from the Office of Civil Rights. On Tuesday, we had Dr. Griffin, who spoke on diagnosing and supporting college students with specific learning disabilities. And today we are honored to have with us Kim Shufran with the iCan House, who's going to speak on autism awareness and acceptance. And then on Thursday, June the 10th, we have diagnosing and supporting college students with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And Dr. Griffin will once again speak on that subject with us. And then we're going to close on Friday, June the 11th, and we're going to have a panel discussion on requesting accommodation and technical standards. And that panel discussion is going to include Holly Wagner, Renee Macemore, Jason Ryerson, and Monica Isabel. The Disability Services Advisory Board, I'm just going to list the folks that are working that help put this together. Trudy Hughes is our system office liaison. Tuesday Sigmund is our board chair. Renee Macemore is our treasurer. We have Jason Ryerson is our secretary, Laura Bracken, Casey Grover, Amy Helmus, Lisa Kelly, Megan Sherman, Star Vault, and Holly Wagner. And these are the board members. And just some reminders to close up. Please hold all questions until the end of each presentation. And if you will mute your mics during the presentations, that would be greatly appreciated. Please note that each session will use the same link every day to log in. Be sure to fill out the survey that is sent to you at the end of the week. And of course, if you have any questions, you can reach out to any of the advisory board members for, like I said, questions or concerns. And now I would just like to share some information about our guest speaker. Kim Shufran was born and raised in Indiana. Kim received her bachelor's in nursing from Purdue University. She has lived and worked in Seattle, Arizona, and Southern California. When she and her late husband moved to North Carolina in 1994, she worked at Wake Forest Medical Center before opening the iCan House. As a single parent, she noticed that Erica had difficulties with friendship skills. Seeking help for Erica, she was frustrated with the lack of services, and she set forth to change this. Through research, she designed and founded the iCan House. Since opening in 2008, the lives of over 700 individuals and their families have been transformed through the iCan House programs, which is wonderful. In 2020, her daughter Erica married Ian, and they moved to Raleigh to begin a life together. Now we're going to talk briefly about Erica Muller. Though she was born and raised in Winston-Salem, Erica has been interested in other cultures her entire life. When she was 4, she was interested in Egypt. In addition to collecting books, figures, and games, she also traveled to South Carolina to see the King Tut exhibit. As she got older, her interest changed to Japanese and Korean cultures and the anime, K-pop music, and cosplay. So it was not a surprise when she told her mom she wanted to go to New York City for a K-pop concert, and also traveled to Japan. So when she was 20, Erica flew on her own to New York City for the BTS concert and toured Nintendo World, Koreatown, and the 9/11 Memorial. Then in 2019, she traveled with her fiance to Japan for 2 weeks, planning the trips on their own. During childhood, Erica struggled with friendships, conversations, fitting in, and schoolwork. She was then diagnosed with ADHD, learning disabilities, and Asperger's. As the inspiration for the design of iCan House, she attended their social skills programs until she outgrew them. At 18, Erica got her first job at a local coffee shop, and she's been working continuously ever since. After a few unhealthy relationships, she met Ian, who was first a friend, then boyfriend, fiance, and now husband. In July 2020, they moved to Raleigh, and in November 2020, were married in an intimate outdoor wedding. Erica works at Koi Sushi and Grill in New Hills, and Ian works at Which Sandwich Shop. They live with 2 roommates in a house and their bird child, Nori, a conure. So please welcome Kim Shufran and her daughter, Erica. Thank you so much for being with us. Let me know if you can see the screen, Kim. Is the correct PowerPoint up there? Your mic is muted. Unmute your mic for me. And I'm trying to get the slideshow for you. Kim, your mic is muted. We can't hear you. And I can't get my full slideshow to go. I can't get the full. Trudy, you want to help me where I need to go to get this slideshow started? I can't even remember what I clicked on to get how I did the first one.
Erica to unmute and
No. There you go. Perfect. I got it. Okay. Can we make sure that Kim is unmuted? Because I still can't hear. Go ahead, Kim. I still can't hear you. It still says you're muted.
We're working on it. Give us just a second.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
there we go. Okay. So can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Very good. And Erica?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect, perfect. Well, I am really honored to be here and really happy to have my daughter with me. I want to apologize to her because I used her maiden name. Her maiden name is Erica Muller, which is her father's name, and I just blanked out because her name is Erica Atkins now. She has Ian's last name. She is Mrs. Atkins, which is, I'm still kind of grappling with that.
There we go.
But
That's a
I'm
little
happy
better.
to have her here. So, and today I wanted to, first of all, thank you for having us in, and also recognize that I think this might be our third visit to speak to this group, third or fourth. So that is an honor. And you will then be able to now meet Erica as an adult. So I want to open your eyes and broaden your understanding today, not just of autism awareness and acceptance, but I'm going to introduce the concept and the understanding of neurodiversity. Okay, the next slide. So this is where it started. Okay, my daughter Erica was just vibrant, excited, happy, always smiling,
Photos of me.
no language delay. She was talking early and putting sentences together and thoughts together, so very expressive. And she was a great child. She was the only child I knew. And as she started to grow up, I realized, and as I was watching her develop, she wasn't like other kids, and she was wide open. And I called her my Energizer Bunny. So she was loving the world, open with what I would later know as ADHD. Next slide. And so here's kind of like the overview of how Erica, the development of her, her growing up. So for 4 years, she was my Energizer Bunny, my go-go girl, and I stayed home from work at Wake Forest Baptist. I was in organizational development. Then in 2001, her father died, and then she started kindergarten in 2001, right after that. And through all of that, you can see the progression of diagnoses that she had. Yet, it really wasn't giving me an understanding of like, how can I help Erica learn the skills she needed? So finally in 2006, 2007, she was diagnosed with Asperger's. So I want to pause here and give Erica a chance to kind of give an overview of your growing up. What does this make you think about, Erica?
I did not know it was 2006, 2007 that when I was diagnosed, honestly. I thought it was earlier, really.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was like, I thought it was earlier than that, honestly, because I didn't know it was that recent, really.
Really?
Yeah, no, I didn't, because you never told me when I was diagnosed.
Right,
You're
right.
just, oh yeah, you have this. And I was like, okay, whatever. Yeah, because it was like, oh, okay. But now, I mean, like now as an adult, I'm understanding more. And surprisingly, TikTok's also teaching me a lot of stuff about Asperger's, ADHD, and neurodivergency and all of that stuff. Yeah, TikTok of all places. But some of them are helpful. And like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And it just explains a lot of the things that I'm experienced growing up or have experienced in my life. So I'm like, okay, yeah. So it's just kind of a little bit of a reassurance to say, okay, so I'm not the only one that's experienced these.
Right. What was growing up like?
Not easy.
Okay. What parts were most challenging?
Obviously school, because just, there was a lot to keep up with school, making friends. And I think because there was a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think my brain could handle all of that with everything going on and being thrown at me. Like, that's still the case to this day, but it's a little better, which is really surprising because I do work in a fast-paced and high-stress environment. So I don't know how I do it, honestly.
Don't know how you do it?
Not really.
So you've actually always you've been in a situation like fast-paced, where things have been expected of you. I mean, that was you struggled in school with that, with attention and distractibility and impulsivity, as well as the learning disabilities. So it was something that you and I were always working on, and certainly coping skills. So it sounds like maybe they're still sinking in, right?
I guess so, but I mean, that's probably one of those things that'll always be the case.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it's because at my current job, I know exactly what I need to do and they understand.
Okay.
Because it's a small family. Koi is just a small family-owned business. So they're always there. The owner's always there with me, and his wife's there on the weekends with me. So we've kind of got a little small team, so it's not corporate based.
Got it.
Which might help a lot because, it's family. So it's smaller team and more understanding.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like you have a good relationship with them.
I do.
How did that start? So like you moved to Raleigh. Can you just kind of update everybody? So like as an adult, you were working at a couple places, and then tell us about your jobs and then moving to Raleigh.
My first job, two of my jobs were coffee shops. My very first one, I actually worked for them twice because it was a great fit for me. I was like, I don't exactly remember what I know. For the most part, most of the time I wasn't particularly making the coffee, but I was doing like more of the organizing, admin-esque stuff per se is the easiest way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more like admin, but I wasn't an admin.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like
Right.
at my new position, I'm a hostess, server, busser, and packer because we are so understaffed at the moment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you stepped into a really busy setting. And how did that, can you go back to, how did you find that job?
Which one?
Koi, right now where you're at.
I literally just found them on Indeed and I applied. I went, oh, this is a Asian grill. I know a lot about Asian culture. And
Mhm.
especially with my experience in Japan, I was like, okay, that'll really, really help too. That'll make me a better fit for the role.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
it was actually a really good fit. And it's one of my best jobs because both of them, both Jason and Olivia, that's the owner, and his wife, really understand me, even though I haven't revealed my diagnosis yet. And I don't think I need to because they understand and they get it and they work
got
with
it.
me.
Yeah. And so in all of your jobs, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you revealed in any of the interviews or in your jobs your diagnosis, did you?
No. But
Okay.
I think two of them did, but it didn't really play too much of an impact. I do on the, what was it, the little disability disclaimer, I do say that I do have one, but it's never really come up or been anything. It's just to say, hey, yeah, here's a heads up if you need anything, but it doesn't really affect me too much.
Got it. So you've been able to ask, and word is advocate. So you've been able to ask for what you need. And so,
And all of the jobs except one for the most part, yes.
mhm, mhm. And the one that
Mhm.
was most difficult was a corporate job, right?
Oh yeah, I hated that job. It was warehouse work. I was like, okay, you know what? I'll do it because the pay is well and I'll get the experience. I won't have a lot of interaction with customers. And that was not the good fit for me because it was I thought it would be a good fit because, I was expected to do one thing and one thing only. Thought, okay, yeah, that'll be really easy. It was, but it also wasn't because there was I was timed, I had to hit a certain ratio, right? I was limited my time off, corporate, and there was a lot of pressure to perform better and well.
There weren't many people human interactions,
I didn't even know half of my coworkers' names. I was there for 6 months.
right? So it sounds pretty sterile and
It was corporate. So I was like, I don't really want to do, not this type of corporate work I don't want to do.
right.
And that's a good learning experience because if I do go into corporate, I'll know what type of corporate to be aware of and know that I won't like.
Right. Well, you have learned a lot, and to hear you talk now as your mom, I think I've heard you put it all together like this. So it's great for me to hear as well.
Mhm.
And I know that it's probably helpful for those that are, attending and our guests here. So, so one of the things, I'm going to flip to the next slide, okay? And this is going to lay the foundation for iCan House. Erica, you remember when we were first starting. So as just an overview for everybody, in 2008, when I was really trying to help Erica, there were very few resources. And so this is what I created to address that. And what is unique about iCan House is that I really wanted to target kids like Erica, teenagers like Erica, and adults who really fell between the cracks. Was not obvious. People would not have identified her as being on the spectrum. And it really was a process of getting that diagnosis. So the key components are no diagnosis is required. Use the term at iCan House neurodiversity rather than looking at specifically a diagnosis to click or check a box. We're not an agency, we're not a school, and really we fall through the cracks just like our members fall through the cracks. Important component of, there's a number of components that are important about iCan House is that children, as they learn about iCan House and they come through our intake and our admissions process, they are invited to join the club. They're not signing up, they're not assigned a class, they are actually invited to join the club. And one of the things that really lays that foundation is the place of belonging. So they are joining a club with other kids, other teens that are similarly different like they are. And then through that process, they make friends, they feel a sense of belonging, their self-esteem increases. And then the facilitators, the staff members who are assigned, facilitate the dynamics that are occurring in every club session. So there is both a direct curriculum where there's direct learning that is occurring with certain topics that are social skills focused. And then there's also incidental learning as things occur. So staff have the freedom to be able to pivot or take a detour if in fact something comes up, bring the club they need to talk about. So that really puts iCan House out there for really as a resource for parents. There are a couple key components to participating in iCan House. The children or the participant has to be able to be independent in their self-care. We also have to, I'm sorry, I didn't turn the phone off here. The independent in self-care, they require a shadow and they have to be able to attend and be at a group, okay, in a session. So, okay, here's our mission. Provide iCan House, we provide an optimistic transformational experience that helps a misunderstood population learn how the world works and how they can succeed within it. I think through hearing Erica's expressions and her sharing, you can see that's really, he brings it all together. Through what we do at iCan House, she has learned how the world works and what she needs to do to succeed. In the lower part in the bullets, you can see that those are our components: teaching social skills, providing educational opportunities, maintaining a hub for resources, and providing a support network for those in need. Next slide. I'm going to give you a quick overview of our programs. 8 to 13 is we start at age 8. And so children during that age are, when they enter iCan House, then most of them are developmentally delayed. Even though we don't ask for a diagnosis, we do, most people reveal, and it really helps us understand where their challenges are, where their social challenges are, and where are they. Okay, actually, I think I'm gonna put you on, I know what I need to do with this phone call. Do you mind if I answer this? I'm sorry.
You need to unmute your mic, Kim.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. This is what happens when I didn't think about the phone ringing. Club is for children 8 to 13. We group them individually through interests and skill sets and personalities. And so there's a group that meets Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in the afternoons. Next one. Real World Connections is our teenage group. And these are adolescents. At that point, we are separating the guys and the girls into different clubs because that's what happens during adolescence. And there's Erica up in the upper left when she was a teenager. Do you remember those years, Erica?
Very bits and pieces.
Some pieces. What was teenage years like?
Not fun, honestly.
Not fun. Yeah.
It had its ups, but it had more downs than it did ups, honestly.
Yeah. And one of the things about being a teenager, I remember with your mom, I really made a decision consciously to not just be alongside you and not create any opposition, because I know that happens a lot in teenage years. So as a parent, I said, I'm going to help my daughter through this, and we're going to get through it together. And so that really started the foundation of like a coaching relationship with Erica and guiding through. And really, that's one of the components of World Connections. Is what we want to do is helping children learn as they become teenagers to think on their own, and to think of themselves as emerging beginning adults, and to process all the various emotions and decisions they have to make. So they are gathering, in addition to individual guys and gal groups, they are actually gathering for social events, which you can see in the middle. That was a cycle bar event. Okay, next one. Independence in the Real World is a program that is a club also, and we are taking on topics of how to become an adult and how to adult in the real world. So these are young adults, 18 and older, learning employment skills, nutrition, cooking, what's it like to have roommates. And so we have a full curriculum on this, and it's an ongoing program. It's an ongoing rolling curriculum. So at individual, if you have any referrals, all of our programs, we have an ongoing rolling curriculum. So a new member can come in at any time in the month or the year. We don't follow a semester curriculum. So they are incorporated. And what that brings is that gives the opportunity for the current members to welcome and bring in and to kind of create an environment of acceptance for the other new members. The next one. And Meet and Eat is our social club. It's truly a social club for adults. Again, starting at 18 and on up into those in their 50s and 60s. So we have participants and members who, this is their only outlet. This is their only connection for social relationships, their friendships. People meet each other. We have members that have been at iCan House and Meet and Eat for 12, 13 years. In fact, I was out at a local restaurant and on Sunday evening, and coming out of the restaurant were 4 original Meet and Eat members. They were all together. I tell you, it just made my heart warm up, because it was like they all met at iCan House. Two of them are in a relationship now. They've been living together for probably 10 years. They met at iCan House. The other one has an iCan House roommate, and the fourth one got his job. They all got their jobs through iCan House. So it was in real life meet in our community, and it was just like, wow. I had to have actually did break down and hug them. It's been a long time since I've gotten a hug. I did hug them and then wash my hands afterwards. So Meet and Eat's a very, very important club. There are currently 40 members. We have as many as 40 to 50 members in Meet and Eat. And during the pandemic, we have offered programs virtually. Next one. Now I'm going to segue now and tell you, we're going to start talking about neurodiversity, okay? And before we start talking specifically about neurodiversity, I want to highlight a really fun, important project that Eric and I are working on together. As We Are is a documentary, and this is a documentary we started filming probably in 2018, 2019. And we're working with a filmmaker from the School of the Arts. And the topic is, of course, adults who are neurodiverse as they seek to live their lives, encounter challenges, and pursue their dreams. And so the compelling stories are evolving our understanding of neurodiversity. So when we started in 2018, I think, Erica, you and Ian had just started dating, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause we started dating in 18. January.
Right. Okay. And then what do you want to tell us about? Is there something you can tell us about process of filming and what they filmed you doing?
They've pretty much filmed us doing, they filmed our wedding, they got our wedding ceremony, and they've just gotten a lot of interview footage with us, just talking about our relationship, really, and just what we were doing at home when we were still living with you.
Yeah, well, why don't you tell the group about that? Tell them about how Ian moved out of his grandfather's and what
I
happened.
think it was like 3 months in that we started dating. Ian jokingly said, he's like, once I move my PlayStation over here, I'm not moving back to my grandpa's. And as you can tell, he moved in and now we're married.
He moved his PlayStation. Did you say that?
Yes.
You guys were gaming a lot and hanging out.
Yeah.
In that,
I mean, we still
house.
do.
And you still do. Right. So then you lived together at our house. Ian moved in with us, and then you were able to have your relationship grow there. Right?
Yep.
How was that?
It was good. It was nice
think-
to finally have somebody that actually liked me.
Yeah.
And like actually cared about me. Let's just say it that way.
How did you know that? How did that come about? Because you were pretty salty about relationships, weren't you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know. I just felt like that he actually cared because he put more effort into showing that he cared about me.
It was new.
Yes,
Is Ian there in the room with you?
he is.
You think Ian would like to come on the screen and show his?
He's looking at me and saying no. He says he's busy right now.
He's busy. What do you think he's busy with?
I don't know. Doing whatever he does.
Okay. Well, so As We Are is a project that is actually in pause mode now. We've got footage and we're at the point of raising funds for the continuing project for that film. So I don't have a release date. The paradigm shift we're going to position to now is the paradigm shift I want to introduce to you is neurodiversity and the social model of disability and the medical model of disability. And if I had a poll, I'd like to know if you could really, yes, I'd like to know if in the chat, how many people are familiar? Is this something that is, you're familiar with neurodiversity, or is it something new? So I'm going to set the stage and hopefully broaden your understanding of a new way of thinking about differences. So this is an important slide on the screen because we have created a really robust medical model of disability, which relies on a diagnosis. And the message is that, unbeknownst, it wasn't the intention, but the outcome has been that disability is a problem, something is wrong, and it needs to be fixed. So that has benefited us in many, many ways with the ADA, and a lot of people have benefited from this. It's not about not having a diagnosis, but it's the premise under which so much of our social culture and and the relationships are founded and identities are formed. So one of the challenges with the medical model is, in fact, that is it. The identity is formed and something's wrong. I've got a diagnosis. There's a process that a child goes through, and then it can become limiting. In addition to that, our culture limits the possibilities and opportunities for those who may have a disability. One of the things you heard Erica say is that she did not reveal, and she's learned how to really advocate for herself. So the premise is social model of disability, and the paradigm shift is that the disability is a natural form of diversity. In fact, there are differences in neurology and different ways that people process and take information in. The goal, instead of to fix, is rather to accommodate disability with optimal outcomes. So it's really that person-centered approach versus the diagnosis-centered. So this was the foundation of iCan House. And at the time when I founded iCan House, this was the philosophy and the approach that I was taking. And then over the years, it has really taken on an identity, and it is a movement, and really has grown to be called neurodiversity. So I really wasn't quite sure of the name. I was on that path, so I was actually ahead of the curve. So I want to just lay this foundation, and next slide, please. So with the wired differently approach, now I want to lay this as a caveat here. There are situations and there are certain genetic chromosomal differences and diagnoses where there actually is something that is out of the norm. Okay, we know that that occurs. We know and can link genetic and chromosomal differences to a change in which results in certain behaviors and challenges in one's life. So this is not to say that disorders or diagnoses don't exist. They absolutely do exist. This is just a way to help broaden and lay a foundation for success. As you see the various ranges, one of the phrases when I spoke to you last time, I used a visual that had a linear, XY coordinates. Well, it's become more complex than autism spectrum. It's not just a XY coordinate. As you can see here, there are many components of variations in abilities and impact. It's not just abilities, but it's where and how does this present in the person who is wired differently. You've heard Erica talk, so you can kind of figure out where she is on this. You can think about the children or the adults that you might know, and there's the full range of differences. Some individuals are nonverbal, some have selective mutism, some are incredibly social. Erica happens to love people and is social and needs people. You heard her talk about that in her job settings. So that is a need she has, whereas others would really be very suited in just not interacting with folk. There's also differences in fine motor skills and gross motor skills. And we know there are competitive athletes that are neurodiverse and on the spectrum, and they're very agile and coordinated, whereas others aren't. And then also the sensory changes and variations in hyposensitive and hypersensitive. Okay, next slide. Specifically about autism, when you've met one person with autism, then you've met one person with autism. Oftentimes they're object-oriented rather than people-oriented. I said oftentimes because Erica growing up certainly had a lot of interests in objects and Pokemon and her figures, but she's also very people-oriented, so she's an example of that. The boy who's photographed here, his special interest, which continues through adulthood, is fans. He collects and restores and repairs fans. He actually started in iCan House when he was 8. Now I think he is 19. He has moved out of our programs, and his parents have been so supportive. He has gone to a fan museum in Indiana in Southern Indiana, there's a fan museum. So he's gotten to see all the different fans. He's in an online group with fan collectors. He's visited the hunter fans in Kentucky, and he told them so much about the fans that they are making that they invited him to be in a commercial. So he is in a hunter fan commercial. So, and he's also now employed at Lowe's hardware store. Imagine where he's working. He's working in the fan department, and he's a top performer, and very happy to be there. So there's varying levels of support and the developmental delay. Children as teenagers, then as they mature, absolutely can and often do catch up with time. And that's evident with Erica and many of our members. When you see these children as they become adults in the college setting, and as they are emerging adults, where you will see them will be along that developmental those milestones. They're going to be moving ahead in some areas and lag behind in others. Chronologically, they may be 18, 19 and ready to graduate, of course, high school and move on, but socially and developmentally, they may lag behind. And that's, I know what you see, I'm sure, as you work with your students. Next slide. Now, this I put in here because I love talking about perspective. So everything we're talking about as we look at challenges and skills and gifts is a perspective. And she says, how do you know I have a learning disability? Maybe you have a teaching disability. which I think, Erica, that might have come across your mind when you were in school.
Not really.
Not really? Okay.
Mm-mm.
Never mind. Honest. Thank you. I think it's important for us to remember. Next slide. What is wired differently? And this is just a quick overview of the different aspects of the brain and different parts of the brain where neurologic differences, neurologic pathways are different, and through that different processing, different aspects of the brain have been strengthened and are well developed, whereas other areas are less developed. And one of the key focuses I want you to note is that at the lower left is the processing speed. That is undervalued oftentimes, and we especially in our adult world, in our communities, we expect people to catch it, and they may catch what we're saying or half of what we're saying. There's a processing delay, and that is in fact one of the challenges, one of the early challenges that I recognized and Erica was diagnosed with was an auditory processing disorder, which really contributed to her not being able to perform in school in first grade and second grade and third grade. It wasn't that she couldn't do the work, it was that she couldn't understand what was expected of her. So that actually continues. Do you see this continuing now as an adult, Erica?
What?
When you are asked to do something, when somebody asks you to do something, how is it easy for you to get it, or do you have to stop and think about what they're asking and ask?
It really
questions?
depends on what's going on.
Okay.
It really depends on what it is.
Depends on what it is.
Yeah.
Some areas you get really quickly, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some
Like-
areas not so much.
Yeah. What are some of the areas that are most challenging? You think about
Like when we're at work, when we're really, really busy and I have like I've got to do tables, answer the phone, and run food. I like kind of pause and go, okay, what do I need to do first? Or I also need to do this, but I also need to do this, but I also need to do this and this, and you get the idea.
Yeah. So it's that prioritizing and planning and decision making that's all affected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you figured out ways to make it work.
Yeah.
Okay, next slide. I want to just highlight this briefly, and I'm sure you've seen all of this in real life. The term is sensory processing differences. This actually goes along with neurodiversity, in that through all of a person's senses, we take in the environment: sight, smell, taste, hearing, touch, and vestibular, which is where our bodies are in space. So in the various responses, senses really take on a huge component in an individual's behavior. It was very obvious with Erica, and oftentimes when she would have a meltdown, it was often typically related to sensory overload. How does that affect you now, Erica? You notice, what are your, you get overwhelmed with sounds or sights or things
Not
now?
really. It's more, not as much nowadays. It's more about too much going on at one time.
Too much.
Yeah.
Mhm. Not
Or
your
too
senses.
much like outside, not sights or sounds really, or smells. It's more of just when there's too much happening in front of me.
Mhm, mhm. Now, when you were growing up, do you remember when there was a time when you had sound sensitivity? You don't
Sort of,
remember
kind
that?
of.
Yeah, okay. I remember you used to cover your ears when we'd go into public bathrooms with hair dryer or hand dryers and stuff. Then you also went to a BTS concert, right? And it was very loud.
I think that kind of says it right there.
Great, next one. The other thing that I want to bring, just quickly highlight, is that what our brain does is it receives information from the environment through all our senses. And of course, it has to be interpreted based on past experiences, and then acts or reacts. And what then comes out is oftentimes behaviors and emotions. The slide just represents that what behavior or emotion you're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. And when you go through the process of deciphering and doing an antecedent, an understanding of what preceded that behavior, that can really be very helpful in supporting and helping your students, and also helping them be successful and helping them learn their own bodies and responses. Does this mean anything to you, Erica?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Okay, next slide. Well, hidden disabilities, this is just a quick list. And when I say hidden, is that when in fact, like with Erica, everybody meets her, and with often our members, they just think it should be whatever normal is. But in fact, there's a lot going on for various reasons and sources. So I'm going to pause here, Erica. Why don't you introduce us to who you have there?
So this is Nori. She's our little baby that lives down here with us.
Is she?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about, what is she?
She is a Sunday conure, a mix between a sun and a Gende conure. So that's why she's a hybrid per se.
Uh-huh. Oh, tell me about how your relationship with birds, so people can understand.
Ever since I was young, I've always been really drawn towards animals, but mainly birds. So they're kind of like one of my passions, and one of my dreams is to open up a parrot sanctuary. And if not, or if I can't do that, at least to work with them and educate people about them, because not many people really understand them.
Tell us about your birds, your experience with birds, and how many birds. You have one now at the house, but
yeah, we only have one with us here right now because obviously we have roommates and we don't want them to, be talking all the time, because one of them does work from home. But at my mom's, we have, what was it, 7 or 8?
7. Nori is the
7.
8th bird.
And Nori's the only one. Yep. Yeah, we have 7 birds. So they're my sibling. They're my children that don't live with me, pretty much.
That's right. How are you doing without seeing them, Erica?
I miss them a lot. I really do.
Yeah. Well, tell them about the Zoom call we did on Sunday.
Yeah. So when we were testing out Zoom the other day, I had Nori with me, and she noticed my mom through the screen, and she was kissing the screen because she recognized who it was.
Yeah. And who did I have?
And my mom had Sam. So I'm sure you guys, he's our cockatoo, and he recognized me too. So he was very happy to see me.
That was really fun. It was the connection through the screen, and the birds were connecting. It was a unique and fun experience. The magic of Zoom. Next slide. Okay, these last slides, I want to make sure I leave opportunity for questions and answers. I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. You do have a copy of them. Really give a lot of detail, some of which will be very familiar, and some you may gain some insights. Really, it's all about the neurologic differences that really are at the foundation of how individuals who are neurodiverse with autism or other similar communication challenges really process the world different. They may listen differently, they may appear disinterested in surroundings, and this was so evident with Erica as I was parenting, being her parent, helping her grow up. I thought she was either ignoring me or deaf, couldn't hear me, when in fact she was unaware, couldn't read the situations. She also didn't use eye contact often. She's much, much better at that. They may need to fidget or stim, which is an actual intention to help their nervous system coordinate. So what looks like inattentiveness is actually them making modifications in their environment so that they can then focus and learn and pay attention. It's actually, growing up for many children, gets them in trouble because our traditional classroom is eyes on me, eyes on the teacher, hands down, don't fidget. In fact, that becomes just contrary to what really our individuals need. There may be us looking like they're ignoring people when in fact, as Erica just described, there's too many distractions. So the processing speed and processing time is just so important. Also, of course, fundamentally is they may not understand social rules and easier to just shut down. Next slide.
Where are you escaping to?
Communicates differently. And just quickly, you'll notice differences in tone of voice, may repeat spoken language, difficulty expressing their thoughts, needs, and emotions. This is one of the aha moments I had when I was Erica's mom and she was a child. And see somebody behind there. So one of the things that Erica said to me was, I'd ask her a question and she'd say, hard to say, Mommy, it's hard to say. And what really, I had an aha moment when she said that, because it was literally hard for her to say. She had the feelings, she had the thoughts, she knew what was going on inside of her, but she didn't have the verbal skills, even though she was highly verbal, to put it all together and express herself. So I then came to realize, wow, what's it like to be Erica? And so every day when I encounter somebody who's neurodiverse in our members and in our programs, or I meet a parent, it's really perspective taking, not just them taking our perspective, but us taking a perspective and putting ourselves in their shoes. What's it like to be Erica? What's it like for this person to deal with all of these bombardments of information and options? Therein lies the processing delay and literal interpretations. So they may not understand sarcasm, irony, idioms. Next slide. Challenges, this all we've mentioned before: poor executive functioning skills, social cluelessness, mind blindness, sensory dysfunctions, and learning differences. The next slide. And guidelines, this is the premise and the foundation of, to me, effective and respectful communications is to meet the person where they are. It's one of the things when I meet parents, I really focus on helping them understand to meet the child where they are, be clear and specific with expectations. Erica certainly expressed this on the job, how that's important. Use concrete terms and examples, break tasks and steps or categories, explain the context or the bigger picture, the why. In our culture, oftentimes kids that have typically asked why are seen as questioning authority, when in fact may be missing the bigger picture. So having the why behind the request or the rules really provides context. Avoid surprises and ask, instead of how do you feel, use the term what do you think, because they're really very much cognitively led and thinking. They're thinking. Feeling questions are very difficult. Next slide. And there we go. So this is my last slide, and look in the middle. One of the best days of my life was seeing my daughter and Ian walk down the aisle and becoming husband and wife. It was a cabin, and there she is, the little girl on the left, and you'll see her on the right with 3 of our birds. She is a bird whisperer. So I hope this has been helpful to help give you a context of neurodiversity. It becomes very important, again, are the key points is meet the person where they are, and really take that perspective of what's it like to be them, and how can we as leaders, as guides, as coaches, as friends, and certainly as employers, create an environment where they can be successful. Okay, this is question and answer time.
Thank you so much, Kim. Yes, if anybody has questions, you can either put it in the chat, or if you want to just unmute yourself and ask Kim, that would be great. I'm gonna leave this picture up because it's so beautiful.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yes,
I love it.
love it too.
And Erica, do you want to have any closing thoughts? Anything that
I can't really think about anything.
Okay, you've done a great job contributing. Thank you. I want to say
Thank you, Erica.
I want to say to the folks, this is the first time that Erica has presented with me since she's moved to Raleigh. She's been very busy working as being an adult, and so I really enjoyed this time with her. It's also our first Zoom presentation for her. Okay, any questions? Any open the discussion up? Comments?
Kim, this is Gwen. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi Gwen.
Hi. I had a quick question about kids, I guess, that develop behaviors that are, you said, were actually modifications to their environment. If they're displaying a behavior that is disturbing or disruptive to the people around them, have you had any luck getting kids to substitute a different behavior that serves their purpose just as well and is less disruptive to maybe other kids in a classroom?
Yes, yes. Actually, you bring up an excellent point, and that is quite common. One of the gaps in understanding and awareness for neurodiverse children and individuals is don't realize the impact that the behavior has on other people. We as adults oftentimes don't understand that. Things come out of our mouths and our actions, but it's really a focus. And so in our programs, that's a common theme in helping when there's an outburst or there's a behavior that is disruptive in our clubs. The facilitator will pause in the moment, put the curriculum on pause, and really explain in a non-judgmental way what's happening. And, you know, Jason, you may not realize this, you know, that sound is really annoying. Or if you're clicking, you know, it takes away from the conversations. So it's first of all acknowledging that it's there. It's taking a choice, making a choice to not ignore it. If you ignore it, you're passively letting it go. So there's no opportunity for learning or increased awareness. So I recommend pausing in the moment, neutrally and non-judgmentally, posing the feedback in a way that, you know, sometimes you may not realize it, and this is what's happening in the bigger picture. And when when this occurs, it can make other people feel whatever, annoyed, irritated, because that's where the gap is. They need the explanation defined and spelled out and broken down. And through that, what is most successful is if you can work with the child or the person, come up themselves with an alternative. What else could you do? Can you think of anything else? And when the staff member or facilitator would work with them, or the coach would work, they would have something in their mind rather than just blank, because usually there's going to be some options. You know, if it's a fidget, instead of having it be a noisy fidget, maybe there's a silent fidget that they can do. Maybe instead of having it right in front of them, maybe it's underneath the table. So it's that process of, first of all, identifying it, bringing it to their attention without judgment, and helping them understand the impact. And then number 3, including them in the solution.
Sorry, Nori.
Thank you, Kim.
Mhm. And that's probably an ongoing, that will be for lives, and in fact, I think that can happen in relationships too. Doesn't that happen in relationships? Thank you. Others? Hi, Nori. Any other comments? Questions? What do you think of my daughter?
This is Trudy. I just want to thank both Kim and Erica for spending time with us and sharing all of your experiences, your life lessons, and your family. And it was an honor, a privilege to listen to you both speak. You did a fantastic job with Zoom. And so you need to do it again. But thank you so much. Really appreciate all the information that you shared with us today.
Thank you, Trudy. I appreciate that. I appreciate those words, support, and acknowledgement. Okay.
This is Alex from Beaufort County Community College, and I just want to say thank you so much. And Eric, I make the direct connection with the birds because we had a Quaker who lived about 25 years. His name was Lou, and he did a lot of singing and talking. So I appreciate the bird connection.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love that smile. Birds always tug at our heart. You bring up a point. You don't realize how sensitive and intimate a relationship you can have with a bird.
Yeah, I can piggyback off of that. So when me and Ian first started dating, he really didn't pay attention to the birds. Now he's a bird man. He shares the love of baby birds with me, and I'm like, hey babe, can we get this type of bird? And he's like, maybe. So he's become a bird man now, which is really good, and I'm happy because that was one of the tests he had to pass, was do the birds like him?
That's right. That's
Because
great.
if your pets can't trust somebody, then I don't think you should be trusting them either.
That's true. They're very intuitive.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, Alex.
Well, Kim, thank you so much. We thoroughly enjoyed your presentation that you and Erica brought forth. And we always enjoy having you as a part of this and a part of Sarah Community College as well. You've been here on campus a couple of times. So, feel free to join us for any other sessions that we have the rest of the week. And thank everybody for attending. And if there's no other questions, we'll just tell everybody to have a good afternoon. And thank you guys so much. So good to see you.
I wanted to make one last appeal that iCan House is a nonprofit 501c3, so we are